Hobby Quick Hits.
It's time for Hobby Quick Hits.
Hobby Quick Hits.
A sports card podcast where we tackle the hobby's hottest topics in depth to help you navigate the sports card landscape and enjoy the hobby we all love. Here's your host, John Newman.
All right, everybody, before we start the show, which today is about budgeting, how to afford the hobby, so to speak. But before we get to the start of the episode, let's hear from our great sponsors, the folks at mojobreak.com. Hey, folks, wanted to tell you about the best place to get some of your sealed sports card wax products. Great selection and some of the lowest prices on the web. MojoBreakShop.com is that place. Whether it's a box or a whole case, they're your guys, and they ship around the world right to your door. The Mojo Break name is one of the most trusted in the hobby. From sports cards to Pokemon, their selection can't be beat. They offer daily deals and pre-orders. Who won first place at this year's Topps Rip Party? None other than Mojo Break. Their prices are already great, but here's a way to save even more money. Use the code QUICKHITS, that's QUICKHITS, for 10% off anything on MojoBreakShop.com. They also have a full-service card shop in Santa Clara, California. So if you're in the area, stop by. They're open 7 days a week, so check them out at MojoBreakShop.com. Hey, guess what? Time for another episode of Hobby Quick Hits. So, I was listening to one of my favorite particular podcasts called Golden Age of Cardboard, done by Mike Moynihan. Does a great job. Definitely vintage heavy, vintage oriented, which is fine by me as I really kind of transition to more of that side of the house. And Mike has a great job of really going into detail over whatever topic he happens to be talking about. Definitely check that out if you haven't heard that show yet. And a recent show he did was about budgets, and I thought it was well done. And I said, man, I agree with pretty much everything he said, so I'm not doing this show really as a counterpoint, but as more of just a different angle. He's not wrong, and neither am I. I don't think anyone's wrong. Everyone has a different budget, right? My budget is going to be different than someone who has $40 million in the bank, right? And their budget's going to be different than someone who has $10,000 in the bank. And so that's the easy part, right? But I kind of wanted to do sort of a budget show with maybe a little different angle. And, if you know anything about me, you've heard my stance where I believe, and again, this is a disclaimer, you have to make your own smart fiscal financial decisions. But I believe, and not only do, but I believe, I've done it before. It's not me just talking about it. I've done it. I sometimes believe that you can spend more than you have and be okay. Now, I don't want you to not pay your mortgage or put food on the table or pay your car payment or your car insurance or any other bill that's important to maintaining your health, your lifestyle, and a roof over your head. I would never suggest otherwise. And to do so is short-sighted and not a good place to go to give someone that sort of advice. But I thought about the show Mike did, and I said, man, it was already something I kind of had on my list, and just hearing the way he did, I said, man, I gotta do my own sort of budgeting show. But I'm a guy that has said and has done this for real, is spend money I don't have at the time. And so I've bought a $10,000 card deal when maybe I had at the time $6,000, $8,000 in my card account. And I took that credit card out and made up the difference there. Got a cash advance, let's say. And, there's some that subscribe to the theory like that's a super no-no. No matter how good the deal is, you shouldn't spend money you don't have. A player can tear his ACL out, and that card that's, $750 is now $250, right? That's the chance in life you take. That's the gamble. Cards are a gamble. And so, I truth be told, I've spent money I don't have. So, when you hear the word budget, you sort of, think, well, you don't think, it's, hey, I can spend X, Y, and Z on total. I can spend X on this Grail card or this card I need to complete the set, and that's a budget. Businesses have budgets, people have budgets. I don't want to say I'm not a budget guy, but I think there's a limit to the budget. If there's a deal that's just too good to pass up and I have to dip into either another account or put it on a credit card, I've done it before, and I'm willing to do that again. Now, truth be told, not to flex, but I have more extra money, if you will. I have money, in my card account that I built up from these tremendous 2 years we've had and still going. Certain things have corrected, but things are still selling. That's not an issue. I'm still having great months. And so I have more leeway to spend more money than, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? And you always hope that's the case, but you don't know. We're seeing a little downturn now. If this downturn just continues and continues and continues, you definitely have to tighten the belts, right? As gas prices goes up, meat price, everything goes up. We could do a whole show just talking about things going up. And so as things going up cost you more, less discretionary income. And so only you can really do your budget. I don't know you. I don't know how much money you have per week, per month, per year to put towards your hobby. Your number will be different than mine. My number will be different than someone else's number. Again, I'm a little bit different in the theory that you can spend money you don't have if the deal is really a great deal and you're really not going to have any trouble whatsoever turning a profit or even holding it for a long-term play. If again, you're in the market to do that. Again, everyone's scenario is different. Everybody, what they have in the bank, what they have for discretionary income. Maybe you get a quarterly bonus at work. Maybe you don't, right? There's so many different variables. It's not a one-size-fits-all budget type thing. You got to be smart. You got to know, where your place sort of in life, where your financials are, and yours again are going to be different than someone else's. When we talk about going to bigger shows, right? Maybe you have to make adjustments there. Maybe you have to plan accordingly that, hey, I'm going to, spend some money on my credit card that I didn't necessarily want to do, but to get this stuff, I'm going to have to. Again, decisions you have to make. If you're a married man like I am, or woman, you might have to ask your spouse, right? Hey, I want to spend this on this card. I really want this card. I really need this card. Now, for me, full disclosure, I have a separate bank/podcast, content creation account where those monies go into that. And so I think I said on a recent show, I never, ever, 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 ever go into myself's and my wife's joint bank account for card transactions. We pay bills, pay our rent, or my mortgage, our insurances, cell phones with that joint account. Grocery shopping, all that stuff that comes with, having your own place and the cars and vehicles and all that great stuff, right? That comes from a joint account, but all my card transactions come from my account, my solo account. You may not have that, so you may have to sort of have permission to spend this much, and nothing wrong with that. I'm not comparing my situation to that situation and saying one's better. They're just different. For me, they're different because at 15, I had this big show. I had this wad of money in my pocket. I came home. My grandma asked how I did. I pulled this wad of money out of my pocket that literally was the size of my fist. And my grandma said, you can't walk around with that as a 15-year-old kid. You got to put that in the bank. And, that's what we did. I can't remember if I already had an account or I had to open up like a checking account. I'm not even sure. I think it was a savings then. I'm not even sure you could have a checking account. But I had an account even at an early age that was mine. And then obviously with my store days, I got a business checking account just with my name on it. Then I wound up getting married. And I remember my wife, full disclosure, asked, hey, she knew about the account. I was very upfront and honest about it. Hey, I run Newman Sports Cards really out of that account. And she asked me, before we got married, what are you going to do with that account? And I honestly looked back and I said, what do you mean? What am I going to do? I've had that account for the most part since I've been a teenager. It's kind of what I do, Newman Sports Cards. It's good in a way because you won't have to worry about our joint marriage account having any sports card money detracted from it, or even if it was temporarily. And when I explained it to her, she said, yeah, I get it, okay. And so I don't have those budgets where I have to ask my wife, really, can I buy this or buy that? I either make that decision myself based on what's in that account and what do I want to owe, because again, remember I said you can spend more than you have. And so I don't know if I'm fortunate. I don't know if I'm blessed. I'm blessed with an awesome wife. That's for sure. But having that separate account probably is not a situation a lot of other people have the same way. So, if that number is significant, you definitely got to communicate that with your spousal person to make sure you stay out of the doghouse and not in trouble or not cause another bill to be paid. While I always have stated that you can spend more than you have potentially, especially if what you're buying and spending that money on is well worth it and can pay for itself many times over, then so be it. But everyone's budget's different. You got to stay obviously with your means. I can't come on this show and tell you to spend money you don't have, and don't worry about making your car payment and you'll be a month late. That's just not a good thing to do, and not a good person would tell you that. But I will tell you to enjoy the hobby. If let's be real. And we got the National coming up, right? There's people who spend more than they have, right? You go to a casino. There's people who have their life savings on black or red on roulette. As simple as that, right? Got a 50% chance of doubling their life savings or losing it all and living in their car, right? And I'm not comparing cars to that. And if you're living in the car because you bought a 1952 Manual that you really loved and had to have, that's, not a good decision most likely, and that's on you. And, I want a 48 Leaf Jackie Robinson, one of the few, card I dropped the ball on a few times, not buying when I could have, and now it's going to cost me a lot more than it ever would before. Can I buy maybe a better, higher grade specimen? A 4, 5, 6, maybe even a 7? Sure, but does it make economic sense to me? And as much as I want the card, I'm like, I'm going to buy that card, not resell it, and probably going to be me passing away and designating who gets that card. Most likely my wife or / my son. And then that becomes a whole other dilemma. So, but could I afford a lesser grade one? Maybe that's when I'm going into the 2021 National, with maybe that being on the list that I'd like to check off? Sure. Doesn't mean it will happen. Nothing's guaranteed, right? And you just pivot, right? As much as I love a 7 or 8, maybe a 1 or 2 is what I'm going to wind up with and save some money in the process. So all these, are factors, how many days, when we talk about shows. But when we talk about budgets, I mean, that's something you have to decide based on your scenario. There's just so many variables. Hey, it might even come down to how comfortable you are with your job, right? If you feel like, I'm not risking losing my job here, they're downsizing. I just got reprimanded, let's say, and I'm a little bit on thin ice. I mean, you might have to slow your hobby down as life gets really real. And so, this episode, can go a lot of different ways, but I just wanted to kind of give my take on it, my little sort of scenarios with budget. I think budgets are important. I think they're just different for each individual person. So enjoy the hobby, enjoy doing your budget, and we'll see you next time on Hobby Quick Hits.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.